Anytime we say his name, it's, ugh, you know, because we've got to get rid of this guy because he's no good for us. But when we were told that we had the opportunity to host an event for State Senator Bright, we jumped on it. And I want to take this time to say thank you to each and every one of you for your participation, because it's been an event. It's been a lot of fun. Everybody that helped with cooking on Saturday, whether it was chopping of vegetables or standing on step stools and stirring pots with paddles, would you please stand up so that we can say thank you? There they are. Okay. It was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of hard work and heart went into the meal that you're eating today. I have the honor of being able to introduce one of my favorite Oklahoma politicians. I really hate calling him a politician because it has such a bad, connotation. But the first time that I can recall that I met Randy Brogdon was at a Tea Party rally in 2009. And I was so very green in the political movement, and he was just beginning his run for governor. Can you remember a time when you used to think that maybe senators and representatives were too busy or too important to be bothered with common folk like us? I remember thinking I could never call Randy Brogdon and ask him to come and speak at our event. But you know what? I found out quickly that when you asked, he eagerly accepted. And over the course of the next year and a half, I learned much about liberty, personal freedom, lower taxes, and limited government from him, as well as the boldness to stand up for what's right. When going to the state capitol when Randy was still there to lobby legislators, Randy's door was always open to us. I remember most of us were green, but we had great passion. Randy would give us bills that needed lobbying and send us on our way in search of the legislators that needed a talking to. And I learned a lot that year, and having Randy in my corner made me a better activist. Randy was a constitutional conservative long before it was cool. In 2003, the Oklahoma Conservative Action Committee, OPAC, named him Legislative Newcomer of the Year. He was named Legislator of the Year for the next 6 straight years, and in all of his 6 years of service, OPAC selected him as Senate Legislator of the Year. In 2005, Brogdon was the first state senator in 20 years to receive 100% on the conservative vote index. He was elected by his caucus to serve as state Republican whip for the 2005-2006 legislative session. And in 2007, Randy was the recipient of the Phyllis Schlafly Oklahoma Eagle Award for his support of constitutional conservative legislation. Pretty impressive, isn't it? It was an easy decision to support Randy Brogdon as he sought the GOP nomination for governor in 2010. Many of us in this room worked hard on his campaign. I believe the summer of 2010 was one of the, it was one of the most, if not the most hottest summers in history. But we got out and we knocked doors and we made phone calls and we put out signs because we believed in Randy and his message of limited government, lower taxes, and liberty. We had hope. Hope for a stronger, more liberty-minded state that would stand firm against the overreaching and ever-encroaching federal government. In the end, when the smoke cleared from the primary, Oklahoma lost a good candidate, but Tulsa County pulled its weight, proving Tulsa County is the reddest, most conservative county in the state of Oklahoma. And if you will recall, it was you and me and many others that believed. We helped win Tulsa County for Randy Brogdon. So Senator Bright, you are in the reddest county of the reddest state in the United States of America. Now Now, I would be remiss, and I'm sorry that he didn't bring her, but if I didn't mention his lovely bride, Donna, who is usually always by his side. She's his rock, the person he depends on most next to God, and I've never seen her without a smile on her lips or an encouraging word. She has been with him through thick and thin, always believing in him, you know, the woman behind the man, keeping him going. So, and the respect that they share for each other is definitely to be admired. Now, I'm going to go off just a little bit because you see recently there have been some rumblings that Randy has recently resigned his position as Deputy Commissioner with the Department of Insurance in anticipation of running once again for governor. Could it be true? Dare we hope? I know I've received dozens of phone calls asking if the rumors were true, and a couple of weeks ago I was asked for a statement asking me what I knew about Randy's resignation and the rumors of his possible run for governor. And here's what I said. Until there is an official announcement, anyone, including Randy Brogdon, running for governor is pure speculation. It wouldn't be surprising if a candidate to primary Governor Fallin rises up, as many conservatives are disappointed with her governing decisions to grow government, pass the largest budget in state history 3 years in a row, and make minimal cuts to state income tax. Many are concerned Fallin will place her position with the NGA above Oklahoma's children by supporting the implementation of Common Core standards, encouraging the Senate to continue blocking legislation, and ignoring the pressure from parents and educators' concerns regarding Common Core. Primarying candidates is nothing more than a job review. If Fallin has done a good job and deserves to be rehired, she has nothing to worry about. The liberty-minded, limited government conservative base might think otherwise. So there you have it. We know nothing more than when we first arrived here, and only time will tell. Unless, of course, Randy has a little something he'd like to announce today. We are honored to have Oklahoma's most conservative state senator, Randy Brogdon, join us as Master of Ceremonies, introducing us to South Carolina's most conservative state senator, who we believe that with hard work, dedication, and a never-say-die attitude, can unseat one of the Republicans' most liberal, progressive senators in the United States, Lindsey Graham. Please join me in welcoming Oklahoma's staunchest defender of liberty, former state senator, Randy Brogdon.
Tell you what, I'm excited to be a part of this today. Senator Bright, where are you? I can't see you.
Over here.
Okay, over there. Welcome to Oklahoma. Now, I got to tell you, just last month I was in your sister state. I was in North Carolina playing golf, and I'm assuming you guys have good golf in South Carolina as well. I'll have to make it down there sometime, but I'm excited about you being here. Rhonda, thank you for by far the longest introduction ever.
Hey, I only get one shot.
I appreciate that. And I also want to say thank you for the kind words about Donna. If she would be here today, and if she knew how hot my lips were right now, she probably would really want to be here. Your jambalaya was delicious, by the way. I'm going to make one comment about what Rhonda said about the future of this state, and I would tell you that I believe Mary Fallin needs a primary. And that's all I want to say. One of the things that I learned in my tenure as state senator was probably some of the most terrifying moments while I was serving is when I recognized that my colleagues either didn't understand or they just simply didn't care about the Constitution. And for me, that was terrifying. And I believe that that probably disqualified a lot of them from serving. Now, I'm talking about some of my colleagues. But when you overtly stand against principled truth, I, for one, have a problem with that. And as I was reading through Senator Bright's resume, and as Rhonda said, when you put your name on the dotted line and you're running in a primary especially, you're filling out a job application. Now, I've known about Lindsey Graham for many, many years. I told the good senator just a moment ago, I said, he has got to be an embarrassment to the state of South Carolina. I'm embarrassed for South Carolina for electing him. It amazes me how people like Lindsey Graham can continue to get reelected in a Republican primary. Now, I know what's going to happen. People are going to say, oh my gosh, Randy's talking about, Reagan's 11th Amendment. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me just share something with you. If we don't start standing up for principle within the Republican primary, and I believe in the principles of the Republican Party, I also believe that those principles are rarely upheld by the elected officials.
That's right.
And if you and I don't get involved in primary races, the status quo will maintain. And I submit to you today that the status quo has created a devastating problem, not just for our country, but for the state of Oklahoma. And when I read about Senator Bright, I thought, my gosh, he is involved in a lot of the things that I've been involved with for the last decade. Some of the same legislation that he's moving forward in the state of South Carolina, we champion right here in the state of Oklahoma. Let me just give you a few high points about Senator Bright's career. Don't know him, I just met him today. And I'm anxious to hear more about him personally. I'm anxious to hear about his accomplishments. I'm anxious to hear about his goals. But let me tell you what he has been involved with in the short amount of time that he has served in the South Carolina State Senate. First of all, I want to tell you a little bit about him personally. He lives in Spartanburg, South Carolina. He's married, has 2 children. Professionally, he is the Director of Business Development for BBD, and he operates a trucking brokerage firm. He's a member of the Roebuck Baptist Church. He has served as a board member on the Palmetto Family Council, the Attorney General's Commission of the Family, the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, and the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. His political career includes serving on the Spartanburg County School Board. And with that, Senator, I would say, why? I served on the Owasso City Council, and I can tell you, the school board and the city council is pretty rough duty for any elected official, so my hat's off to you for that. In the first year of his serving on that school board, he did something rather substantial that I would imagine got the ire up of a lot of folks. But he saved the taxpayers of about $500,000 by stopping an unnecessary consulting contract that the school board was trying to push through. Because of that, he was awarded the Taxpayer Hero Award by the Spartanburg County Taxpayers Association. In 2008, he was elected to the state senate. Since that time, he has had some rather substantial and sweeping legislation, which includes the NDAA Act, which protects the citizens from unlawful detention, the Religious Freedom Act, Agenda 21 Protection Act, which protects the South Carolinians from abuse of property rights. And I like when I read about his Second Amendment stance, he actually believes in the Second Amendment. He actually believes what it says and holds firm on that. He authored the Constitutional Carry Amendment, where basically he said we don't have to ask the government if we actually do have the right to bear arms. Of course we have the right, and government is not there to infringe on it. He also wrote the Freedom's Firearm Protection Act, a very similar piece of legislation that I authored here. Senator Bright has the best voting record in the state legislature concerning fiscal responsibility and reducing spending in his state. He's been honored with having a 100% voting record by Club for Growth and other conservative organizations. I like the fact that Senator Bright actually believes in the free market system. And his support of free market principles and the legislation that he promotes will prove that out. He's pro-life. He's authored the Personhood Act. He's authored the Pregnant Women's Protection Act, among many other pro-life pieces of legislation. And I just got to suspect that Senator Cruz and Senator Paul and Mike Lee, they would probably all appreciate having a man of such great stature, a man of principled beliefs. They would probably enjoy him serving with him in Washington, D.C. Folks, let's stand and give honor where honor is due, and let me introduce Senator Lee Bright, candidate for the U.S. Senate from the great state of South Carolina.
Thank you for having me here today. It is an honor to be here in Oklahoma with you. We're going to get feedback if I get closer. We okay? It's great to be here. I appreciate the warm introduction. I am a conservative first. I'm a Republican because of the platform.
Amen. Thank you.
I went down the list when I ran in 2008, and they said, we want you to take the Republican platform, and any part, you don't have to agree with all of it, but any part of it, we want you to mark through that you don't agree with, because we've got a lot of candidates running for different offices, and we just want you to be honest with us. So once you line through the part that you don't agree with, then sign it. I didn't line through anything, I signed it, because I believe in the platform. But we got people that are elected in Republican politics that may say they believe in the platform, they don't vote it. They don't stand for the platform. We need more men of courage, like your state senator here, who has been standing for the platform. We need more folks doing that. But see, what happens is you get elected, and the pressure comes, and the special interests come, and the folks that want big government come to you, and they want something from you, and then it happens time and time again, is once you get elected and you start seeing those people that supposedly have the influence, you want to garner their support, and all of a sudden you start to compromise. Well, I don't know how to compromise. At least not the compromise that the Republicans do these days. I mean, when I believe in compromises, you get something you want, and they get something they want. What have we got? We haven't gotten anything with the compromise. Nothing on the conservative side. The Democrats get everything they want, and basically we get nothing. And it's time we stand our ground. You know, Lindsey Graham was the co-sponsor, I don't know if any of you know this, of the climate change legislation. Well, John Kerry and Lieberman from South Carolina, and I know South Carolina should do better, and it is embarrassing for our state. And we're going to need some help from Oklahoma. If you look at Lindsey Graham's disclosure, he's got money from all over the country. If you look, a lot of money from California, a lot of money from the hospitality industry where he's trying to help on that immigration bill, or amnesty as I call it. I mean, it is just out of control. So at some point, we've got to make a stand and say we're going to put this guy out. And it's going to take more than just people from South Carolina. This man has $7 million. $7 million in the bank. We got a lot of catching up to do. And I'm traveling the state. I've been to Virginia, been to Maryland. This is my first trip to Oklahoma. I'll be glad to come back. But we're going to have to do something if we're going to save this republic. I mean, Lindsey Graham has become the Arlen Specter of the U.S. Senate. I mean, he's filling his footsteps. Now, a lot of you folks, if you're not fans of Lindsey Graham, I imagine you're not fans of John McCain. If you beat Lindsey Graham, you will have beaten John McCain. It will be a twofer. I can promise you, you will have gotten rid of both those men. And I appreciate John McCain's military service, but I think we could have a retirement party for the both of them. Now, when it comes, it's hard for me to, I don't know how much time I have to talk about where I differ from Lindsey Graham. I mean, it would be like a Ted Cruz and Rand Paul filibuster. It would take that much time to go over all the differences, but I don't know if your senators were here in August. I imagine they were. I imagine they were here listening to what you had to say. Well, our senator was with John McCain over there acting as community organizer for the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt during the recess. I mean, you think he wanted to go over there and get involved in the Syrian conflict. And that's brave Oklahoma men and women that he's going to put in harm's way. Not just Americans, but people from your state. It matters who's in the U.S. Senate. Not just the two you elect, but the rest of them. It matters. And I can promise you that I am from South Carolina, but I'm as red as you guys are. I'm to the right as you can get. I would love to race to the right with Ted Cruz, because I think I can beat him. I mean, I'm the most conservative member of the South Carolina legislature. I believe if it's not in the Constitution, you shouldn't do it. I've been asked by Tea Party groups, they get 100 scores, and other legislators come to me and they say, how do you always get 100? And I said, well, it's either more government or less government. If you're beating back government, I'm going to support it. If you're growing government, I'm going to oppose it. And I don't care what the intentions are. Because you can't grow government without taking away people's freedom and liberty. And I'm going to fight for your freedom and liberty in Washington, D.C. if I can get your help. I need your help. I mean, when you look at what's happened, Facebook is great. I mean, you can communicate with people all over the country on Facebook, Twitter, I mean, the internet, email, it's all well and good. But you folks know people in this room that can write large checks. There are people in this room that can write large checks. And that's what it's going to take to beat Lindsey Graham. Now, I'm not saying that, and I'm not comparing myself to George Washington, but sometimes you get that feeling of what it was like going to the Continental Congress saying, give me some money so I can beat these British back. Well, I've got to have some money to beat Lindsey Graham back. It's got to be done. Because what happens is you guys are involved. You guys care because you're here today. But the average voter doesn't. They're going to watch the television. 2 weeks before the election, they're going to make up their mind. And Lindsey Graham is going to have, I predict, with third-party money, in excess of $12 million. Now, the advantage we have is in South Carolina, it's a small media state. So we don't need $15 million to win. It's not New York, it's not California, it's not Florida. But we are going to have to compete. And we're going to have to raise, I think my campaign, we need to raise $200,000 this quarter. And you say, well, $200,000 is nothing compared to $7 million. Well, I want to tell you my plan, because if I'm going to ask for your support, I got to tell you my plan. My plan was to raise $100,000 in 45 days, and we did. Then I wanted to raise $200,000 by the end of the year, 200 additional. We've got to do that. That'll give us $300,000, and I believe the first quarter we can raise $500,000. That'll be $800,000, and your political folks will tell you you're going to double that in the last 90 days. That's $1.6 million. I believe if we raise 1.6, we'll get another $3 million from outside. I've got a gentleman that I know a gentleman that has a super PAC. I'm quite confident he's going to get heavily involved. So we'll have some outside resources. But we've got to show folks, just like a stock prospectus, we got to show folks viability. And that's why I'm traveling around the country, traveling around the state. That's why we're doing this fundraising. I'll do what it takes to beat back Lindsey Graham, but I need your help. So if you can give names, Chris Sullivan's with me now. It's brightforsenate.com. There's Chris. Any names you can give him. We're taking checks here today. I mean, fundraising is it's that critical. That's why I'm here. So if you can put me in touch with anybody. When it comes to the Second Amendment, there's nobody. Lindsey Graham, now I don't know, like I said, I could ramble on for hours if somebody has to call a time on me. And of course they do that, in the Senate sometimes. They'll shut us down on filibuster, which I've been shut down before, but 6 hours is about my limit before they shut me down. But Lindsey Graham stood in a committee hearing and said, and he quoted the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court, just because they're the Supreme Court doesn't mean they're the end all of the Constitution. I mean, just because you've got Supreme Court members who think that world courts are more important than our Constitution. And that's a violation of their oath. But the Supreme Court said the Second Amendment was for reasonable people for reasonable purposes. That's a lie. That Second Amendment was to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. They had just left one and they didn't want another. So that's where I stand. Lindsey Graham stands with the Supreme Court on that. So, if your gun rights are important, I'm your guy because I'm going to fight for them, because I believe that the Second Amendment is clear, and I believe the Bill of Rights, if you read the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment is the only one that's followed by shall not be infringed. So I'm going to protect your gun rights, I'm going to protect your First Amendment rights. Those Bill of Rights are sacred to me, and I'll give my life for them. So you don't have to worry about me falling over for a political pressure, because political pressure I'm immune to it. I don't know why. There's something kind of strange about me. My colleagues will tell you. You convince me I'm right, and I'll stand against the whole world if it's the right thing to do. And I know that I'm right when it comes to standing up for the Constitution, because that's the bedrock and the foundation of this country. It was founded by godly men who sought God's wisdom, and I believe the Constitution was prayed over, and it was drafted, and that document has protected this nation, and if we'll adhere to it, we'll continue to be safe. So I ask for your support, and I want to take questions, because I don't think it's fair for me to stand up here and talk for a little bit about what I want to talk about, and not hear what you want to talk about. So if anybody's got any questions, you may have to shout out, but feel free. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I did a little research on you before I came, and I talked to Numbers USA. And Numbers USA is probably the premier anti-amnesty immigration group in the country, and they gave you the highest rating of a candidate they could give you. And to me, it's extremely important to get rid of amnesty. That's what I call Lindsey Graham, because my God, that would destroy this country. That Senate bill would be 30 million additional Democrat voters, third worlders, and so on and so forth. And I'd like for you to make a commitment, and I'm sure you probably would, that you're against any form of selling out on amnesty. That's your position, right?
Absolutely. I'm on the Ethics and Religious Liberty Council for the Southern Baptist Convention. And the Ethics and Religious Liberty Council has been supporting the amnesty bill, or at least portions of it. So I actually went to the convention floor and attacked that position, to which the ERLC was kind of in shock, because they said, you're a board member and you attacked us from the floor of the convention. But it was wrong. And it's what Arlen Specter, I think that's what he would like to see. I mean, Lindsey Graham wants to basically, I think he would like to be a Democrat, but the numbers aren't there. But if you bring all the illegals in and they vote Democrat, then a Democrat can win in South Carolina and just about anywhere in the country. Because the numbers, they say 10 million, 12 million, the number's 30 million. And we know the Constitution, and we know that they're not going to be able to come in and have a second-class citizen. They're going to have the right to vote. And that's the goal, is to silence us. It's to silence the conservatives. So no, I'll oppose it, and I've said from the podium that I'm for self-deportation. I mean, I think they should leave. I believe in the Fourth Amendment. I'm going to protect it. So I don't want American citizens, because of the color of their skin, being asked for papers. But if you're breaking the law and you're found to be illegal, you should be deported. You shouldn't be here. So, it's our country, and basically, immigration's great. And I'm for legal immigration. I tell people, and of course I forgot I was going to mention this earlier, because some of my relatives, I'm sure, are here, because part of my family was Cherokee. I'm Cherokee, Scotch-Irish, and found out during the last election that I'm part German. And my great-grandparents immigrated here from Germany. So I believe in immigration, but I also believe in the rule of law. Yeah, well, you might have dueling microphones too.
They seem to go against the Constitution. It seems like, you as a businessman, you want to be part of an organization that promotes business, but they're going against us with pro-amnesty. I believe they supported Obamacare as well. So how do you combat the chambers of commerce?
I have the lowest score of any legislator in the state of South Carolina from our state chamber. They remind me of that group. If you study your history, we used to have these people called Tories. And their loyalty wasn't so much to the country, but it was to the crown, and not so much to the crown, but to themselves. And a lot of these chamber crowds are just in it for the money. And that's all they care about. And our sovereignty doesn't matter. The rule of law doesn't matter. All that matters is putting more money in their pockets. And I believe in the free market. but I also believe that the folks in government should be looking out for the best interests of the country. And a lot of these chambers are not. And all they see with the illegal immigration is cheap labor. That's all they see. And it's a mandate, because here's the problem, and it's not politically correct to say this, but we got a lot of people that won't work. And they won't work because we'll provide their food, and we'll provide their housing, and we'll provide them some spending money. I mean, you think about it, we've all seen it, the folks in line that are using, I guess they call it WIC here too, to buy their food, but yet they got the nicest nails and the nicest pocketbook, and they get the nicest car, and we're getting the bill. And how many times do they turn around and say thank you? Never. So we've got to force our people to work. I believe if you don't, there's people that are mentally ill, there are people that are disabled. I understand that. I also believe that's the role of the church to take care of those folks. But able-bodied people, if they don't work, they shouldn't eat. It's just that simple. And we got to get there as a country, because this socialism system does not work. It hasn't worked anywhere. That's right. And Obama is cramming it down our throats. And I'm going to stop. If Lee Bright's in the Senate, I will be Obama's worst nightmare. Because I'll take the fight to him. I'm not looking to compromise. I'm looking to survive him. And that's what we've got to do, is survive him and elect a conservative president. Not just a Republican president, but a conservative president. And where does that train go through? It goes through South Carolina. If I'm in the U.S. Senate, the odds of having a conservative presidential nominee are so much stronger than if Lindsey Graham's there. So now we just up the stakes a little bit. Not only do you need to get me in there and have a conservative senator, but it may mean you having a conservative president. But the maximum you can give is $5,200 per couple. My wife says I should smile more when I tell a joke, but I am serious if you got it. Yes, sir.
I believe there are, three other people, or three people in total that are primarying Senator Graham. How does the initial round of primaries work? Do you have like an elimination round, or is it the biggest number of votes wins?
50% plus one.
Okay.
And if you don't get 50% plus one, in 14 days there's a runoff. The way it's breaking down right now, the latest poll, Graham was at 51, we're at 15. The other three challengers are at 4. So we've got more percentage than the other three combined. So I feel pretty confident it'll be the two of us in the runoff.
Just registered Republicans?
This was the Republican primary voters. Now, Graham's favorability was below 40. So we've just got to get our name out there, get our message out there. And I believe it's our race to lose. I think we can win this thing. As long as folks get involved and folks that can contribute do. Because his side, I mean, that crony capitalist network machine is strong. And they're giving, $7 million. And he basically refuses to ask any questions of defense spending, which to me, everything ought to be on the table. Not that we shouldn't have a strong defense. We've got to have the strongest defense in the world. Because we still live in a world that's ruled by force. The only reason we've been free is because we've been the strongest. So I believe in a strong America, but these questions need to be asked. There needs to be some oversight. And I'll provide that oversight. Because when you take $1 away from an American and spend it through the tax system, there better be a reason. And not to line some defense contractor's pocket. It better be to protect this nation. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to find out what your opinion is on Sharia law and Islam and the Muslims in our country.
Sharia law, I sponsored a bill to outlaw Sharia law in South Carolina. It's amazing to me. It is, when you look at the Muslim world and how intolerant they are to Christianity in other countries. I don't want to be that way towards the Muslim faith, but we do have a Christian heritage, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I refuse to apologize, and I'm not going to ask people to go into the closet. Because that's our heritage, and that's what's made this country great. And so, but I would fight any kind of that type of pressure, because that is an oppressive law. It is, Sharia law is just the way women are treated. It's just unbelievable. So no, I would fight that, and I am fighting it in the South Carolina.
The Sharia law, anyway, is against our criminal laws, and Islam it's not a religion, it's a totalitarian form of government. It has religion mixed in there. It has some scriptures and then some opinions of Mohammed, and it's not covered by our Second Amendment freedom of religion.
Well, to me, you've got the purpose of the law is to protect us from one another. When you read Bastiat's law, that's the purpose of the law. And if someone has a belief that is counter to mine, providing they're not enforcing that upon me, then I don't have a problem with it. But like you say, I'm not going to stand for Sharia law. I'm going to fight it. You know, we're not going to have that forced upon us. So I think we're on the same page. I'm just, you know, I want to be very protective of people's rights, you know, of whatever they want to believe.
I know that you are very opposed to Common Core curriculum, as are we. And what are you doing in your state that maybe we could replicate in our state to help us fight Common Core? And then what also could you do if you were elected to the United States Senate to perhaps even defund or abolish the Department of Education?
Well, I look around this room. A lot of folks in here went to school before 1980. I'm guessing. How'd you guys learn to read? Without a federal Department of Education, how'd you learn to read? I'm just curious. And the other question is, I've always asked this, for those of you that are around before 1960, what did you guys do with the bodies? Because when there wasn't federal government health care, surely nobody could live, right? You didn't have doctors, right? If there wasn't the federal government, if there wasn't Medicaid, Medicare, what'd you do? I mean, and then we were talking before about the oil drilling. What'd you guys do? How'd you breathe before 1970? Before we had an EPA? How did you drink water? I mean, this federal government does nothing well. Nothing well. I mean, we have to have a common defense. Now, I agree with that. But we ought to make a list of what we want to keep. I think Rick Perry was fatally flawed in his faith when he had to start thinking of what we ought to get rid of. It ought to be what should we keep. We need a Department of Defense. Then what else? What else can the states not handle? And I believe the states can handle just about everything. And if we return the power back to the states, we'll return the power back to the people.
I have a question for you, kind of on the humorous side. Well, what has the government ever touched that didn't turn brown and smell nasty?
Well, I tell you, it's I don't know how many of you read Bastiat's The Law. It's a short book, and I'm dyslexic, so I like short books. And, you know, you read that, and it really explains it. The purpose of the law and the purpose of the government. And if we got back to those restraints, it would be amazing. And you think about, you know, I'm a huge fan of the fair tax.
Yay!
If there was ever a time where you could drive the death nail through that I can't think of the word strong enough, but the IRS, just to get rid of it. I mean, let's just abolish the IRS. There's no other institution in our government that people are more fearful of. Is the IRS. I mean, you think about it. Just people that are just trying to feed their families. They get that letter, they're horrified. Now I can understand that in Nazi Germany, not the U.S. I mean, if we could just go back to 1913 and maybe skip that year, you know, not have that income tax.
Have you had the opportunity to meet the rock star of Oklahoma, Jim Bridenstine?
I don't think so.
You would know it if you had. You know.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to be in that group of 535 and be working together.
Senator, what you say is very good. But a lot of times the problem is we elect people like you in the Senate, and John Boehner is not one of us, or we have Senator Mitch McConnell, who, and I mean, all these things we want to do don't happen, even with a Republican in the White House. Think of the last, 10 years ago, we weren't anywhere closer to where we need to be. get in there, how do you overcome these odds?
You beat Lindsey Graham, it'll send shockwaves around the world. You will, number one, they'll take care of McCain. But the other moderates will be horrified. I mean, if this dumb, podunk redneck from South Carolina can beat the chosen one, Lindsey Graham, then ideas matter. Ideas really matter. And I think that you beat Lindsey Graham and it'll change the country.
Do you have some big endorsements?
We're working on them. We have a couple of 3 congressmen that may come out for us next week. So we've got several on the precipice. We're working, you know, if you've got connections with folks, we would, you know, endorsements are great. The most important thing I think right now in front of us is having this $200,000 by December 31st. I think that's the next big hurdle. So I'm trying to focus one hurdle at a time. Once we're having what they call a Tea Party convention the second week in January. We won every straw poll that we've been involved in. There was an executive committee straw poll that was Republican, you know, wasn't 9-12, wasn't Tea Party, it was actual Republican Party in a county in South Carolina, not my home county, and we outpolled Graham on the first ballot. I mean, we were ahead of Graham, and then Graham was in second place, and the rest were down. So I think what happens is we have this Tea Party convention we're going to have like second week in January. We have that, and I think that we'll have basically the Tea Party nomination at that point. And then it's going to come down to fundraising.
I have one more question. So let's say that I know someone that's very wealthy and I give you their name. What do you do with it?
I call them and I ask them for money.
You call them yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, we call and call and call, and I mean that's it's, you know, it's something that you have to do. I mean, you hate to constantly have to pressure people for money, but I ran an election in 2000, ran against an incumbent and got outspent about 3-1, lost by 21 votes. And I remember telling people, if you write me a check for $1,000, we get on television. And some people can't, you know, write checks that big, and that was the max in a state Senate race. But we had a lot of small donors, but we just didn't raise enough money. So my opponent, 2 weeks before the election, was on television. We couldn't afford to do television. It was 21 votes. And we would have won that election handily had we been able to compete, because television is such a powerful medium. So, you know, that is, you have to do it, because if you don't do it, you lose. So, you know, you have to pressure people to raise money, otherwise, you know, you don't get your message out and your opponent wins. But I will tell you this, Ted Cruz's average donation was $45. And I've lived in this Obama economy too, so I know what it's like. So those that can't afford to give what you can. But if you can afford to give as much as you can. Yes, sir.
Could I borrow the mic?
Absolutely.
You may not get it back.
I'm a politician. Listen, my daughter's tire blew out. I need to go rescue her, but I'm going to write a check. I came here to hear what he had to say. I got in this game late. I'm going to write a $500 check if I get somebody to match it. I will write a $1,000 check if I get somebody to match another $2,000. So get at it. I'm good for the money.
Would anybody else like the microphone? I will yield the rest of my time. Any other questions? I know people have to get back for lunch, and brightforsenate.com. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you something. I'm a precinct person, or whatever that is, and I want to find out, you have precincts in the state of South Carolina, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, are these precinct people calling the voters and saying, get out and vote?
Oh, absolutely. We'll have the ground game. I mean, we are going to be solid on the ground game, and we've got, actually, we've already got region headquarters set up. We've got people that are going out meeting with people every day. I mean, we're up to 15% in the polls, and we've only been in the race. We got in August 12th.
Because if I could help with that, I'd be more than glad to.
We'll take phone volunteers. Anything that can be done, brightforsenate.com, just go online. We've got a lot of folks that are volunteering from out of state. We've even got people that have said they'll open up their houses for people that want to come in and walk the streets and knock on doors before the election.
When is your primary?
It is June 10th,
June 10th.
and then the runoff will be June 24th. I won my first runoff June 24th, and June 10th was the first election. My daughter's birthday is June 10th, so it could be a good day.
For you.
It'd be a very good day.
TC?
All right, let's give a round of applause.
Thank you.
All right, well, if you've got any other questions, they'll be off to the side later on. But right now, you know, we've done something amazing here in the 1st District of Oklahoma. We primaried a establishment candidate for Congress, and we beat him.
Amen.
We beat him because of grassroots support. And that's what we need to do here today. You know, people were asking, why are we bringing in a guy from South Carolina to fundraise in Oklahoma? Well, let me tell you something. Everything Lindsey Graham does affects you and I. He is traveling the country, raising $7 million from establishment folks that want to steal your money. Let's be real. So what do we need to start doing? We need to start paying attention to the races around the country. You know, it starts with Senator Bright, but it should definitely not end there. There are many seats around the country that we need to start looking at and taking over. One seat that the establishment, you know, folks are trying to take back is a seat in Michigan from Congressman Justin Amash. That's a seat we need to keep. But right now, we need to take Lindsey Graham's.
That's right.
If you're here today and you can donate or match what County Assessor Ken Yazel just proposed, please come to me. Come to Sam. Raise your hand, Samantha. Go to Joanna. Joanna? All right. Go to one of those people and write out a check and do what you can. If you don't have a check, we can take your card. We'll directly donate to Senator Bright's website. Let's do what we can. If you can't donate today, keep up at it on his website. Just keep it going. If you give $2,600 today, let's see it. Let's do it. Let's get it going. Let's get Graham out of there and get right in.
Can you tell them what's the maximum an individual can give?
2,600.
Maximum for a couple?
5,200.
Okay.
If it's a couple, if it's 5,200, both people will have to sign the check. If it's an individual, 2,600, we can take that right now, today. So let's make it happen. Thank you all for coming and mingle. We're going to do some pictures back in the back. If you want a picture, go on back there. Rhonda will have more information on that back there. What's that? Oh, and there's cake. There's this wonderful cake. We'll be serving cake as well. It's got a picture of Lindsey Graham. You know, we want to send him home in style. You know, it's a good. You know what? He had a good 10 years or whatever it's been. 10 years too long. So let's get him out of there and let's send him home in style. Thank you.